You're watching Joy News. We want to take you straight away to the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel where the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum is underway.
We have Cardinal Peter Texan, who is also one of the Goodwill Ambassadors of the KIPTC. We have Rear Admiral Seth Amwama, Chief of Naval Staff, Ghana Armed Forces. We have Air Vice Marshal Frank Hansen, Chief of Air Staff, Ghana Armed Forces. We have Brigadier General Evan Niayi Aite, Deputy Commandant KIPTC. We also have Dr. Emmanuel Kofi Annan, Director, Faculty of Academic Affairs, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center.
Ladies and gentlemen, the government of Norway is a proud partner and sponsor of the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum. With joy, I'd like to invite to give his opening remarks Mr. Eivind Udla Johansen, Chargé d'Affaires, Norwegian Embassy in Ghana. Shall we put our hands together for him, please?
Your Excellency, President of Ghana, former heads of states, Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security of ECOWAS, Special Representative and Head of the UN Office for West Africa and the Sahel, members of the Diplomatic Corps, dear peacekeeping colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me commend Ghana for the long-standing leadership and contributions to peacekeeping you have shown, of which the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center is a powerful testament. Norway is a consistent partner and supporter of the center and is a proud sponsor of this timely forum. We see the center as an important platform to increase African leadership and convene relevant partners to strengthen knowledge, training and policy for more effective peace operations. Norway is a long-standing partner and contributor to UN peacekeeping. More than 42,000 Norwegians have served in UN peace operations since 1949. In May this year, Norway again provided a military transport aircraft for 6 months to the UN mission in Mali, MINUSMA. Norway has also decided to maintain the camp facilities outside Bamako until the end of 2022 and to provide a new transport aircraft to the operation again in 2021. We are also deploying a specialized police team to the UN mission in Mali that will contribute to the strengthening of rule of law and security institutions in Mali. The team will work on capacity building for crime scene management, which is important after incidents of violent extremism, including attacks on peacekeepers. Over the last decade or so, violent extremism has dominated the international policy agenda. Consequently, discussing the role of peace operations in relation to these threats has gained strength. Peace operations are increasingly expected to prevent and counter violent extremism. But, as we will surely learn more about the next 2 days, there are arguments for and against giving the UN peace corporations a larger role in mitigating and responding to these threats. Although there are good political and economic reasons for doing so, the challenges and difficulties are many. Indeed, the unintended and negative consequences may have serious consequences for the humanitarian and political part UN should play in the countries emerging from conflicts. We need a better understanding of and strategies for dealing with violent extremism. Violent extremism stems from a variety of root causes: injustice, marginalization, underdevelopment, corruption, lack of responsive governments, and social cohesion, weak and limited state-society relations, and externally supported religious radicalization, just to name a few. The UN Secretary-General has warned against a securitized approach to countering violent extremism. And he has outlined a prevention agenda where the main goals are to better understand the motivations for joining extremist groups and to deal with the root causes through strengthening governance, the respect for human rights, more accountable institutions, service delivery, and political participation. The multitude of reasons for violent extremism must be reflected in the various tools and approaches member states and global and regional institutions have for dealing with these challenges. MINUSMA in Mali has become a laboratory for testing whether UN peace operations actually are able to take on these challenges. The Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center is a key platform to continue building capacity of the African Union, the sub-regional organizations, and African member states, not the least in order to counter and prevent violent extremism in a holistic manner. Stronger emphasis on early peace building and recovery programs that can provide real opportunities and stop the recruitment into terrorist organizations are key. A militarized strategy does not only risk fueling further radicalization, but also draws funding from potential prevention activities, leading to a negative spiral. A prevention agenda must encourage a rethinking of relations between divided groups in the society and should include a deeper dialogue with civil society and lead to a more inclusive, participatory, and representative society. Women are particularly hard hit by violent extremism and militarized responses. The rise can lead to a cycle of militarization of societies. Norway is convinced that peacekeepers must take a gender-sensitive approach and that this will enhance the capacity to engage with local communities in promoting reconciliation and peace. Special efforts must be made to ensure that women are included in all training activities. Moreover, those who have been trained must actually be deployed. A greater number of women peacekeepers will result in more effective implementation of mandates. Promoting women's participation is not only about gender equality. There should be no doubt that increasing the number of female peacekeepers is a question of effectively and sustainably preventing and resolving conflicts. To conclude, there seems to be a widening gap between what is asked for peace operations today and what they are able to deliver. We are convinced that the Centre will play a role in narrowing that gap. Peace operations led by different agencies will meet the same challenges, the same difficulties, and the same lessons learned. So cooperation and information sharing must always be a priority. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Ladies and gentlemen, the next speaker has been very instrumental in the success of this CAPS Forum. He is the chair of the CAPS Forum, actually. Help us welcome His Excellency Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, Special Representative and Head of the United Nations Office for West Africa and the Sahel, you know us. Dr. Mohammed Ibn Chambers, please.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, President of the Republic of Ghana. Your Excellencies, former heads of state and government here present, honorable ministers, honorable members of parliament, the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, His Eminence Cardinal Turkson, distinguished participants, Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. Once again, we meet under the aegis of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center to support the ideals of our late friend, colleague, husband, brother, a proud and committed African, as well as an exemplary individual, Mr. Kofi Annan, who through his works inspired us all to believe that global peace and stability can be attained. I would therefore like to extend my heartfelt thanks to the staff of the KAIPTC and its partners for organizing such an important meeting of key actors who, like Mr. Kofi Annan, have dedicated their lives and careers in pursuit of peace, stability, and development in Africa and the world at large. I'm honored to have been invited to participate in this momentous event. Mr. President, we especially appreciate your presence here today despite your very busy schedule. I know you're caught between two major conferences today. We're also happy that former President John Dramani Mahama is here to join you in welcoming former heads of state and our foreign guests. The wealth of experience and knowledge, as well as the diversity in this room, gives renewed hope and confidence that there still is a collective determination and yearning to make this world a more peaceful place. We must therefore embrace this unique opportunity and continue charting the path to sustainable peace and democracy and development on our beloved continent. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the theme for this meeting, peace operations in the context of violent extremism, cannot be more relevant given the existential nature of the threat posed. We're witnessing systematic loss of lives, including at least 27,000 reportedly killed by Boko Haram-related attacks since 2009, acute humanitarian crisis with dire consequences on women and children, a retreating state presence in many areas, and a surge in intercommunal conflicts and transnational organized crimes caused largely by security vacuum that has been created. Having identified violent extremism as a threat to international peace and security, the international community has remained resolute in addressing its causes and effects. The UN, the AU, ECOWAS, and other regional communities are taking complementary measures to eradicate terrorist groups, including inter alia, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, and ISIL. In exercising its leadership role, ECOWAS is planning to organize a heads of state and government meeting this month, precisely on the 14th of this month, which we hope will add more impetus to regional efforts to prevent and counter violent extremism. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like at this point to share with you a few perspectives which I hope will provoke some additional thoughts during discussions over the next 2 days. Firstly, our peace operations apt in carrying out counter-terrorism operations. If we consider the traditional peace operation, which was one deployed where there was a peace to keep after agreements between the belligerents, then the response will be negative. However, with increased conflicts and the surge in violent extremism, there's a paradigm shift in terms of the conceptual thinking behind the setting up and deployment of peace operations in environments in which there's increased terrorist activities, or to directly engage these negative forces. Increasingly, forces of peace operations who normally were not operationally, doctrinally, and politically ready to take on counterterrorism operations are adapting and reorienting their approaches to directly counter threats emanating from complex, asymmetrical operating environments. In fact, it can even be argued that peace operations now constitute the first line of defense against violent extremism. Secondly, the diversity in peace operations is indicative of the type of partnership needed to address the multi-pronged cause and effect of violent extremism. The singular act of deploying a peace operation is not a panacea to combating violent extremism, as it is imperative to build concentric partnerships at all levels that will leverage on the presence of these operations and improve their efficiency. In prevention terms, the relationships between peace operations and communities in their areas of operation is vital. In addition, partnerships at the political level to provide the requisite level of political, financial, and material assistance to the peace operations must be enhanced to ensure effectiveness and predictability in their operations. This is more relevant as peace operations involved in counterterrorism operations continue to face severe resource constraints. Thirdly, being on the front line, peace operations play a critical role in furthering the peace and development nexus that is required to sustainably and holistically address this scourge. A military approach does not guarantee long-term solutions. It must be accompanied by long-term programmatic responses that will address the structural causes of violent extremism. Therefore, the deployment of peace operations to prevent and counter violent extremism must be accompanied by strategic and operational plans and programs to provide basic services, address unemployment, youth unemployment in particular, exclusion, discrimination, and poverty that are some of the main drivers of radicalization and recruitment into these groups. In the Sahel, for example, the Priority Investment Program is being implemented simultaneously with the operations of the G5 Sahel Force, while in the Lake Chad Basin region, and I want to acknowledge my brother, Ambassador Nu, who is here, Secretary General of the LCBC. The Lake Chad region has also launched the Regional Strategy for the Stabilization, Recovery, and Resilience of the Boko Haram affected areas, and this is being implemented alongside the operations of the MNJTF. Fourthly, the success of peace operations to prevent and counter violent extremism will largely depend on the level of confidence and trust between them and the local population. An important aspect in this regard is a respect for human rights norms and standards during their operations, which is critical in winning the hearts and minds. Peace operations that are perceived to be targeting the population and failing to respect human rights will face severe challenges in the implementation of their mandates. Cognizant of this, peace operations are increasingly taking steps to put in place safeguards to prevent and address any violations implicating any of their members. Fifthly, strengthening coordination, promoting local ownership and leadership must remain at the core of the regional and international response on preventing and countering violent extremism. Local ownership, which guarantees the meaningful participation of all members of the population, including women and youth, should be strongly encouraged, as these groups play important roles in the overall response to violent extremism and, as such, are key partners for peace operations. Furthermore, the fact that violent extremists keep blurring territorial boundaries, thereby increasing their footprint across borders, calls for enhanced cross-border coordination between peace operations and states on military, humanitarian, justice, and development issues. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, I would like to reiterate that the nature of the threat posed by violent extremism compels us to collectively renew and redouble our efforts while remaining engaged and determined that it can and will be defeated. Success can only be achieved if we defeat both the terrorists and terrorism. This will require continued collective action in line with the true African tradition of helping to put out the fire in the neighbor's house before it reaches yours. Thank you for your attention.
Musumuru Kofi Annan will remain one of the most decorated diplomats the world has ever seen, and one of the best Secretary Generals of the United Nations. He was the UN Secretary General from 1997 to 2006, where his main priority during this period was to comprehensively revitalize the United Nations and make the international system more effective. He was a constant advocate for human rights, the rule of law, the Millennium Development Goals, and Africa, and sought to bring the organization closer to the global public by forging ties with civil society, the private sector, and other partners. Kofi Annan made immense contributions to peace and security globally before, during, and after his tenure as Secretary General, and is known to have redefined the UN and was praised by the Norwegian Nobel Committee for being preeminent in bringing new life to the organization. He received the Nobel Prize for Peace in 2001 with the United Nations for his contributions towards a better organized and more peaceful world. He became the forerunner for the Millennium Development Goals when in 2000 he issued a report which called for member states to put people at the center of everything we do. The report further encouraged people to free our fellow men and women from the abject and dehumanizing poverty in which more than 1 billion of them are currently confined. At the Millennium Summit in September 2000, national leaders adopted the Millennium Declaration, which was subsequently implemented by the United Nations Secretariat as the Millennium Development Goals in 2001. In July 2000, Kofi Annan initiated the Global Compact campaign that got corporations to be more socially responsible and to manage the human rights, social and environmental consequences of their business activities.
I call on you, individually through your firms and collectively through your business associations, to embrace, support, and enact a set of core values in the areas of human rights, labor standards, and environmental practices.
In 2007, there were violent protests in Kenya against electoral rigging and ethnic violence after the declaration of electoral results in December 2007. In what was one of Kenya's darkest moments, where about 1,000 people lost their lives, Kofi Annan led a delegation to Kenya to resolve the crisis and bring an end to the violence. After 40 days of negotiations with the two sides, Kofi Annan and the team succeeded at brokering a power-sharing agreement that brought an end to the violence. After his tenure as Secretary General, he remained quite an excellent diplomat and an instrumental advocate for Africa's development. He took up a few roles in the United Nations, serving as Special Envoy to Syria, and attempting to negotiate a ceasefire and leading a commission to investigate the Rohingya crisis in Rakhine State, Myanmar. The government of Ghana, under the Ministry of Defense, established a peacekeeping training institution in recognition of the need for training military, police, and civilian men and women to meet the changing demands of multi-dimensional peace operations. The center was named after Kofi Annan in 1998 in honor of his immense contribution to global peace and security. Since it began operations in 2004, the center has provided research in conflict studies, peacekeeping, and peace operations, and a lot of training to thousands of civilians and security personnel from all around the world.
In the words of the commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Kofi Annan was a world-class statesman. His name and our association with him is of an inestimable value to us. His name has given us global prominence and opportunities for work as a center. This great son of Africa and of humanity has built a priceless legacy for us. The legacy of being the embodiment of peace, peacekeeping, and being a global treasure. To honor the memory and legacy of contribution to world peace and security, the leadership of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center have instituted the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum. This is a flagship annual event designed to bring together political leaders, diplomats, and experts to dialogue and share ideas on the most critical evolving peace and security trends on the African continent.
Your Excellencies, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, one person stood by Mr. Kofi Annan through thick and thin throughout the years, no matter how tough or rough. Let's welcome Mrs. Nani Annan to give some remarks.
Your Excellency, President Nana Akufo-Addo, Excellencies, former heads of states and government, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be here with you today. I was quite moved to watch the video, and I want to thank you all for the support and warm thoughts that have gone out to the family and myself during this year. Sorry. I would like to thank Commandant Clifford Evans and the KAPTC for organizing this forum in memory of my husband, and for inviting me to join you here in Accra as a representing the Kofi Annan Foundation. As a son of Ghana and Africa, the peace and security of the continent was a personal as well as professional concern for my husband. Our distinguished speakers have already highlighted that the spread of violent extremism is destabilizing and terrorizing society and communities across Africa. Violent extremism is causing massive population displacement, economic disruption, and humanitarian crisis. We must recognize, however, that the drivers are multiple, complex, and context-specific. With so many experts in the room, I will not pretend to know the answers to this existential threat. But however, allow me to flag 3 points in particular. First, evidence suggests that violent extremism cannot be solved through security responses and military solutions alone. It demands a holistic approach. According to the UN Development Programme's research on the sources of violent extremism here in Africa, socioeconomic and political marginalization, a lack of education, state violence, and poverty are all contributing factors. This underscores the importance of closely aligning security and development strategies. Building democratic institutions and processes that ensures human rights and the rule of law and promote accountability are critical ingredients in countering extremism and should be an integral part of our peace efforts. Through its Elections and Democracy program, the Kofi Annan Foundation works in a number of countries to strengthen the integrity of electoral processes in order to build, strengthen, and safeguard democracy, which also serves as a bulwark against extremism. In fact, today, the Foundation is hosting a conference in Cape Town that specifically looks at challenges to democracy in Central and Southern Africa. Second, I want to underline the important role of civil society organizations. They often have a unique access to their communities and can turn vulnerable individuals away from violent ideologies and radical groups. Third, I believe that we must fully engage young people, especially young women, in all our efforts, including policy making, to prevent radicalization. And I'm glad that the role of women and youth will be highlighted here. Africa is today the youngest continent in the world. About 60% of its entire population is under the age of 25. And all too often, young people are both the victims and perpetrators of violence driven by extremist beliefs. The crucial preventive role that youth can play tends to be overlooked, although they are well placed to spot early signs of radicalization and create safe dialogue spaces for their peers to express their frustrations. The Kofi Annan Foundation, through its youth-led initiative called Extremely Together, works with a group of young leaders in Africa and from around the world to prevent and counter violent extremism. As positive role models, these courageous young people inspire others to promote dialogue and tolerance among their peers. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, your leadership, action, and vision can play an important role in addressing violent extremism and building a peaceful Africa. As my late husband often said, there's much more in this world that unites us than there is that divides us. I wish you a very productive conference in your efforts to promote peace and security in Africa, something I know my husband would warmly applaud, and I'm sure his spirit is with us, as he's here on the photo.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nani Annan, woman of strength and character. A song of peace is playing. If we listen, we will hear. We have come to that all-important point where we must hear from the most powerful man in the land. Our guest of honor believes in letting the Lord fight all his battles, and that is how he has won his greatest victories. I believe we can learn from his example. Your Excellencies, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, shall we rise to our feet and herald the Commander-in-Chief of the Ghana Armed Forces, the President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
The fourth President of the Fourth Republic of Ghana, Your Excellency, John Dramani Mahama, Your Excellencies, former Presidents of sister nations in Africa, the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, the Minister for Defense, Ministers and Deputy Ministers of State, the Chief of Defense Staff, Acting Inspector General of Police, Service Commanders, Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, Madam Nani, Maria Annan, the German Ambassador, the Norwegian Chargé d'Affaires, members of the Diplomatic Corps, His Eminence Cardinal Peter Turkson, traditional rulers, fellow Ghanaians, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to be here this morning to open the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum, CAPS, and I'm glad to be given the opportunity to deliver these brief remarks. To those of you coming from beyond our shores, I say Akwaba, a word of welcome to you. I'm confident that you will quickly discover that you are amongst the people who pride themselves, justifiably, on their sense of hospitality. This forum, its maiden edition, is being held in commemoration of one of the truly iconic figures of modern times, the highly respected former Secretary General of the United Nations, the late Kofi Annan, that noble Ghanaian who brought such renown to our country, Ghana. A man who was an ardent believer in the capacity of the Ghanaian and African to chart his or her own course onto the path of progress and prosperity. I'm delighted that his widow, Madame Nan Maria Annan, could join us at this forum as we continue to pay tribute to the memory of this illustrious Ghanaian and African. It is going to be my privilege, shortly after here, to cut the sword for the construction of a monument in his honor in the premises named appropriately after him, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. May his soul continue to rest in perfect peace in the bosom of the Almighty until the last day of the resurrection, when we shall all meet again. Amen. The theme for this forum, peace operations in the context of violent extremism in Africa, highlights the major priority of the contemporary agenda on our continent, which we must collectively confront, and which gives us cause to continue to celebrate the works of Kofi Annan, a man who spent his life making peace where there was conflict. The theme also prompts a number of immediate questions. First, what should be the role of peace support missions in the context of violent extremism? Secondly, what kind of peace support operations can provide effective response to the phenomenon of violent extremism? Thirdly, how should such missions be composed and deployed? Fourthly, which entity or entities are best placed to mandate and capacitate them? And fifthly, how should human rights be observed in the midst of violent extremism? The answers to these questions should influence your deliberations over the next 2 days, and I'm expectant that the communiqué will provide us with some much-needed guidelines. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years, we have learned, most often through bitter experience, that terrorism and violent extremism are not restricted to particular geographic locations or jurisdictions, as the impact of a single terrorist incident in one part of the world resonates throughout the world. West Africa in recent years has become a hotbed of terrorist and extremist activities as a result of greater activism of groups operating in the northeast of Nigeria, the Lake Chad Basin, Mali, and the Greater Sahel. Endemic poverty and widespread disillusionment amongst youth in Africa are not only providing fertile breeding grounds for those who want to cross the Sahara Desert on foot and the Mediterranean Sea in rickety boats in the hope of finding a better future in Europe, but also for a new generation of terrorists and violent extremists. Because surrogates of Al-Qaeda in the Sahel and Boko Haram militants operating around the Lake Chad Basin, the two most active terrorist groups in West Africa, are known to exploit the unacceptable levels of poverty in these areas in the recruitment and indoctrination of youth. Furthermore, the growing number of breakaway terror groups, in addition to our natural vulnerabilities, notably the spread of ethno-linguist groups and the porous nature of our borders, call for regional and continental approaches to contain the growing threats of terrorist and extremist activities. Despite it being a beacon of peace, stability, and democracy in a region that is plagued by the activities of terrorist and extremist groups, Ghana must know she cannot be immune from terror attacks. She is determined, however, to deepen the religious tolerance and peaceful coexistence that exists between the majority Christian and the minority Muslim religious groupings in the country. They are hallmarks of our nation, which we cherish. Our major encounter so far with the terrorist or extremist group came in 2015, when agents of the so-called Islamic State succeeded in recruiting a few adherents from the country's university campuses to join the ranks of the group's fighters in Libya and Syria. They are known to have died in combat. 2 Germans of Ghanaian parentage are also known to have joined the group, with one currently serving a jail term in Hamburg in Germany. The activities of terrorists and extremist groups in Ghana, for now, take the form mainly of fundraising activities by allegedly charitable organizations, which divert these funds to support extremist activities around the world. Last year, security agencies in Ghana had to disrupt the activities of groups purporting to raise funds for Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar, which were in fact funds for fundraising for terror-related activities. In aid of the global call to action against terrorism and violent extremism, Ghana has signed and ratified a number of international instruments aimed at the prevention and suppression of international terrorism. The contents of these instruments have also served as guides in the formulation of our counterterrorism policy, which seeks to prevent acts of terrorism in the country. The counterterrorism policy has led to the setting up of a counterterrorism unit within the National Security Council Secretariat to lead and coordinate our efforts in the fight. Ghana has adopted a well-coordinated interagency approach, which encourages the timely sharing of information and intelligence, operational coordination, and joint strategy formulation, and has proved essential towards ensuring the efficient execution of the country's counterterrorism policy. With the Secretary General of the United Nations, His Excellency Antonio Guterres, on the margins of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2017 in New York, where we discussed the need for increased collaboration within West African countries in tackling the increasing incidence of terrorism and violent extremism in the region, a proposition that Ghana heartily endorses. Ghana continues to establish closer ties and good working relations with security organizations in West Africa in a bid to improve the collaborative framework within the region. She's a regular participant in the meetings of the Committee of Intelligence and Security Services of Africa, CISA, and AU body. The quintet meetings, known as the Accra Initiative, involving security and intelligence heads from Ghana and her neighboring countries, namely Côte d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Togo, and Benin, are also held frequently to review and formulate joint strategies towards combating shared threats on terrorism and violent extremism. The shared nature of threats confronting West African countries and emanating from terrorist and extremist groups in the region demands the enhanced collaboration of all security actors within the region. That is why I, like many in West Africa, was happy that the leaders of Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, and Burkina Faso, known as the G5 du Sahel, have launched a multinational force to fight armed groups in the Sahel region, with 1 battalion each from the 5 countries. The coordination of activities between the armed forces and the intelligence agencies of our respective countries is absolutely essential to a successful battle against terrorism. Furthermore, we believe that others should emulate the example of France, Germany, and other members of the European Union in providing assistance to and thereby enhancing the capacity of the G5 du Sahel. Already, these poor countries are having to spend unacceptably high proportions of their national budgets on defense and security matters, to the obvious detriment of necessary expenditures on social concerns. Their call for global solidarity must not go unheeded. The UN Security Council, responsible for the maintenance of international peace and security, must step up to the plate. The fight against terrorism and violent extremism cannot be limited only to military means, vital as they are. Broader policies must also be put in place to create opportunities and jobs for our youth if we are to deal successfully with their root causes. Firstly, through education. We have as a matter of great urgency to ensure access to education for all our youth. We're told that 89 million young Africans of school-going age are not in school. That has to stop, and stop now. In Ghana, at great cost, we have, since my assumption of office in January 2017, instituted a system of free secondary education, which has increased enrollment by nearly 50%. From this month, when schools reopen, 1.2 million Ghanaian children will be beneficiaries of the free senior high school policy, the highest number of pupils in secondary school in our history. The cost of providing free secondary school education will be cheaper than the cost of the alternative of an uneducated and unskilled youthful workforce that has the capacity to retard our development and to pose a threat to the peace and stability of our nation. Secondly, through the structural transformation of our economies. With the majority of the continent's economies dependent on the production and export of raw materials, it is not surprising that our youth want to leave in search of greener pastures elsewhere in economies that generate more jobs. We cannot continue traveling this worn path of limited success of being exporters of raw materials. We have to embark urgently on the structural transformation of our economies. The only way to ensuring prosperity for our populations in Africa is through value addition activities. In other words, through industrial development with modernized agricultures in transformed and diversified economies. We must rapidly leave behind the old agrarian economies and embrace the technological and digital potential of the new modern economies, and thereby give opportunities, jobs, and hope to our young people to live dignified, productive lives here at home. Thirdly, through good governance. It is important that we promote and develop on the continent a system and culture of accountable governance, free of corruption, whereby our people are governed in accordance with the rule of law, respect for individual liberties and human rights, and the principles of democratic accountability. Such a system requires building strong institutions of state, such as well-resourced parliaments and judiciaries, efficient law enforcement agencies, and effective security forces that see their responsibilities and allegiance to the wider public interest, not just to the conveniences of the government of the day. Innovative, creative mobilization, and disciplined use of public resources are therefore of the utmost importance in the struggle for national development. It can be done. So I say in conclusion, the terrorism and violent extremism constitute major threats to the very survival of our nations, and it is my fervent wish that we leave this year's forum with a renewed sense of purpose and a clear strategy which will help us win the fight against terrorism and violent extremism in Africa, and by so doing, guarantee continental peace and security essential to the socio-economic development of Africa. May God bless Mother Africa and us all. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. The high point of the CAPS Forum is upon us, ladies and gentlemen. A glorious moment indeed it is. The President of the Republic of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, will now lead a delegation to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center for the sword-cutting ceremony for the monument of Busumuru Kofi Annan. Accompanying the President are the CDS, the IGP, service chiefs, the German ambassador, the Norwegian chargé d'affaires, Mrs. Annan, our goodwill ambassadors, and our former presidents. The Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum is organized in collaboration with the federal government of Germany and the government of Norway. We're streaming live on KIPTC's Facebook page on the handle at KIPTCGH. We're also broadcasting live on GTV, City TV, JoyNews on TV, and myjoyonline.com. We're most grateful to our media partners, the Daily Graphic, GTV, City TV, and JoyNews. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, please join the conversation about the CAPS Forum by posting on Facebook, Twitter, using our official hashtags, hashtag KAPS Forum. Follow KAIPTC and partners accounts and retweet or like posts. Use event hashtags and general hashtags in your posts and tweets. Please follow KAIPTC on Facebook and Twitter using the handle at KAIPTCGH and on Instagram with the handle at KAIPTC.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge a few more people. His Excellency Ambassador Mama Nuhu, who is Executive Secretary of the Lake Chad Basin Commission. We also have in our midst Dr. Zanato Ajiman-Rawlings, who is the MP for Korle-Klote constituency and also a former student of the KIPTC. Your Excellency, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, when we leave here, the picture-taking format is as follows. The President will take a picture with the former President and Minister for Defense. There will also be another picture with the Presidents, the Goodwill Ambassadors, and the Minister for Defense. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the sword-cutting ceremony will be telecast live for those of us who remain here at Movenpick. There is also an exhibition at the foyer with the Ghana Navy, the Ghana Military Ladies, and KIPTC publications. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the convoy of the former presidents and goodwill ambassadors will leave first to the KIPTC and will be followed by the President of Ghana's convoy.
All right, you're watching JoyNews, our live coverage of the CAPS Forum underway at the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel, a two-day forum to discuss violent extremism in Africa and how to tackle it. We've got dignitaries from all over the country and across the continent here at the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel leading this discussion as we talk about fighting extremism here in the sub-Saharan region and of course across the world. Now you've heard of events there in Mali, in Burkina Faso, in Nigeria. You've heard of Boko Haram. These are the kind of threats we are dealing with as a sub-region. Lives have been lost. People are fleeing to other countries. How do we tackle it? And that's a discussion that has been going on there at Movenpick. That was the opening ceremony. As I said, it's going to be happening over the next 2 days. Now, the president just addressed the forum. He talked about the fact that this is a collective, exercise that all countries must get involved. He talked about the fact that Ghana is not immune to terror attacks. Remember that there were concerns that people from terror groups from Burkina Faso were entering into Ghana. We had this scare in a Roman Catholic church and all of that. So Ghana is not immune to the attacks the president has been talking about. And so he's also been talking about broader policies to deal with the threats of violent extremism. He's talked about the need to improve our educational system so that more people are getting educated. He's talked about job creation, the fact that governments across the continent must create jobs for the people, and the fact that job insecurity can lead people into doing stuff that cause harm to citizens of our countries here in Africa. He's also talked about promoting good governance and the fact that terror groups could, come out of poor governance, and that was the address. Earlier we had the address by the UN representative, special representative for the UN head office in West Africa and Sahel, Dr. Ibn Chambers. He talked about a meeting that is going to be held by ECOWAS to deliberate on the issue and also put together efforts to fight violent extremism. We also heard from the wife of the late UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. She also, sort of encouraging African leaders to go at it and to deal with the issues of violent extremism. So what is happening now is that there's going to be a sword-cutting ceremony, a monument in honor of the late UN Secretary General Kofi Annan. We will bring that to you once we get those live visuals. And as I indicated, the forum is going to be going on for the next couple of days. When we come back from that sword-cutting ceremony for the monument in honor of Kofi Annan, we will be having a discussion on peace operations and violent extremism, regional perspectives. The keynote speaker will be Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu. It will be interesting to get her perspective on the matter. Also, tomorrow there's going to be a strategic and operational decision-making discussion on experiences of heads of missions in the context of violent extremism in Africa. That also an important discussion. So we are following this for you here at JoyNews. We're bringing you the events as they happen. As we cover this crucial discussion, remember that, as the president said, Ghana is not immune to this. We've seen it happen in other countries. Burkina Faso, in Mali, in Nigeria, they're dealing with Boko Haram. Is a real threat. How do we deal with this? What policies should African governments come up with in order to fight this? We'll bring you more. Do stay tuned to JoyNews as we continue to cover this all-important peace and security forum.
Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call and invite the Osabu Ayikuwulomo Numo Badu Odano Odiapense the first, the chief priest of the Teshi traditional area, to offer the traditional prayers for us. Can we warmly welcome him and his team, please? Thank you very much.
Ago temeka jame, ago nimeka name, agago, ago, mene show, nima show, nama show, wabaloma wo, atano bo wenu bo shpon ba ida na ko no ke jomo juna jowo, ata ba ida na ko no ke jomo juna jowo. Wọ́n bí jọ ọmọ ẹ̀há wọ́n máa yẹn yẹn lọ ẹ̀ wọ́n bí jọ ọmọ ẹ̀há wọ́n máa yẹn yẹn lọ wọ́n bí jọ ọmọ ẹ̀há Kofi Annan ní ẹ̀ṣinwọ̀ ní ètè mẹ́nẹ̀ wọ́n ká ilẹ̀ mẹ́nẹ̀ wọ́n bá ṣí ní wọ́n gbélé ní wọ́n kẹ́ ìwòkú akẹ́ bẹ̀fẹ́ bí ẹ Kofi Annan ẹ̀ṣinwọ̀ ètè mọ́ ṣí bẹ̀fẹ́ bí ẹ wàá kyẹ́ ẹgbẹ́ wọ́n kẹ́ káyì. No catch us will be Kawana be, Mene won't buffy Bafena, Ba, Yashina, Tanemi, Kaja Ewekumi, Kabashimo, Kufemo, Koneba Shavia, one big drummer, ha, one rubble, Oko boy, I guess you won't man be bione, Mene, Enye, I guess she, Kofi Annan, Beheto, Akabato woman, if I feel Casimo, it had better be Nibafe, I guess you were here in yellow. Je manfe mano nakato shimene teshi na man nyenye lokume ne shinwo mo ne she ni kasemo ne ya kase keje Germany ka gbe manfin ne ke kwashi ke Africa manfin no mene akaba wo teshi bia aga shi teshi akwe ko ni kase mo ne akase me ne ba ye se fe no ne akase akaba twa amani ye je me won bi jo mo ha mo go fe mo ko wo mambula ne ba bie enga ne ba bie won bi jo mo ha le no te no te shabu to agwa no won ko le menye bulu ya da na eko ma yo le ba ida na eko o samo ti kroso ba ida na eko o sabo la te o ba ida na eko afi o kropo gbe tabi sa flepo ko gbe yo ba eko amaga ba eko chawe ba eko bentu ke bi ko enyi ba he eko logo te enyi ba he eko obo na obo ba eko ogwa enyi mo cha ke nga cha enyi ba he eko mo ya la ke bi ko enyi ba he eko o asho da mi asipe eshi enyi ba he eko lo mo le gbe ba eko songbe ba eko o kese gan o kese gan o tu mano ne o tu mano ne mene mambulo fe kamba hochishi namba tobu no ya ke shele moni ba ma mambulo amba ti ame yo bre jo fu ame yo afaban ko na me yo bon na me bo bon jo mo fi ame no no ya fi ame no mo fi amo ni ba tashi ni ba susu peace here ke gbe fu ye e ba ni na Ghana di ke ba e ba bo kese gongo e wo won bi jo mo e ha we ku fe ni ba bu ashi e bi oyo bon no bo bon na na bro so bo ke bi ko awushi wo jonya lo wo jonya ma wala bia wala ha wala nya shu akeba me ni be ko enu won eku ame twa no manya ba awo twa no manya ba ya o kan gbe egbo twa no manya ba ya o kan gbe egbo wala wala.
Thank you very much for that ceremony. May I also invite Lieutenant Commander D.B. Quayson from the Ghana Armed Forces Clergy to give us a word of prayer.
Please, let's pray. O Lord God, our creator and preserver, we give you praise and thanks for your goodness which never fails. Our hearts are full of gratitude for the life you have given us and for the will and desire to serve you and your people. We acknowledge your presence with us this very moment as we prepare to cut the sword for the building of a statue in honor of Ghana's illustrious son, His Excellency Kofi Annan of blessed memory. Set apart this ground upon which we stand to the honor and glory of your name. May what we do at this time please you, and may your spirit guide us as we seek to glorify you with the work of our hands. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. At this point, I would like to specially acknowledge the presence of Her Excellency Madam Chinwe Hesse, who is the chairperson of KAIPTC's Goodwill Ambassadors. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, in our beautiful Ghanaian culture, and I believe in most cultures around the world, when you visit a place as a guest, you need to receive an official welcome to feel welcome. Well, for this occasion, we have fittingly found a distinguished personality to do so for us. Please, with a round of applause, help me welcome Honorable Dominic Nitiwu, the Minister for Defense Ghana and the Chairman of the Governing Board of KIPTC, to give us the welcome remarks.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Ghana, President Nani Akufo-Addo, Your Excellencies, the former presidents from Sister African countries, Your Excellency, Dr. Mohamed bin Chambers, the UN representative for West Africa and the Sahel, Your Excellency, the wife of His Excellency
Kofi Annan, Nani Maria, eminent invited guests, goodwill ambassadors, ministers, the Chief of Defense Staff, the Acting Inspector General of Police, service commanders, the Commandant of the Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center, the Member of Parliament for Lejekuku, Honorable Dr. Okoboy, Nime, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to this sword cutting ceremony on behalf of the governing board of the Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center. And let me state that, Your Excellency, 21 years ago, the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Defense, established the Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center as a platform for sharing Ghana's long experiences in international peace support operations and to provide capacity development and to support the regional and international peace and security initiatives. In line with the proverbial mindset of the Ghanaian, government framed the mandate of the Kofi Annan International Peace Support Training Center within the context of the global iconic image of the late Mr. Kofi Annan, the world statesman who dedicated his life to the cause of global peace and security. Over the years, KAIPTC has continued to build on its strengths and in research and in training, as well as to leverage in assembling regional and international peace and security stakeholders on the themes of peace and security towards conflict resolution in West Africa. Your Excellency, the President of the Republic, the maiden Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum that you opened today is the first of the series of major strategic annual events that KAIPTC is rolling out to engage regional and international stakeholders at strategic level. In his lifetime, we all know and we heard you say, Kofi Annan personally followed the evolution of KAIPTC and regularly visited the place. Let me state significantly that he personally set up the Secretariat of the West African Drugs Commission on these grounds and personally convened a number of meetings of that commission here. He and his dear wife, who is present here, planted separate trees in front of the mayor's building of the KAIPTC. As chair of the governing board, I appreciate His Excellency Kofi Annan's direct influence on the evolution of the center. Let me state that wherever he is, I am pretty sure that he is and will be happy for what has happened today and what is happening today. This is a man who stood for the Millennium Development Goals. This is a man who was a constant advocate for the rule of law. This is a man who stood for peace and security in West Africa, in Africa, and the world. This is a man who stood for women empowerment. This is a man who stood for labor standards as well as empowering the woman. This is a man whose name has given us a greater value, and this is a man this center and the nation at large is proud to. Today, I am delighted and I'm glad that I have the opportunity to welcome you, Your Excellency, and all of you to this sword cutting ceremony. And I want to thank you, Your Excellency, for having the time and giving us the honor by accepting to do this sword cutting ceremony for the construction of His Excellency Kofi Annan's monument here at the Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center. As the Ghanaian proverb will say, and as the Ghanaian culture will say, I take this opportunity to welcome all of you sincerely for making time to be here for today's occasion. May God bless you all, and may your time be well spent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. It is now time, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for us to receive a presentation that would essentially satisfy our curiosity on how the monument for His Excellency Kofi Annan would look like. Before I introduce who will do that for us, I would like to share that the monument will be constructed by Stone Depot Limited. This is a Ghanaian company with expertise in natural stone, fabrication, and installation. The statue will take 6 months to complete. Well, I am itching to see exactly how this would look like. So without further ado, I would like to call on Lieutenant Colonel A.B. Techi, the Deputy Director, Engineer Services, and the Chief Military Architect of the Ghana Armed Forces to deliver a short presentation for us. Please, let's welcome him.
Your Excellencies, I present to you the concept of the 20-foot Kofi Annan statue. 3 poster designs were submitted for consideration, of which 1 was selected. This design was unique in itself, as it portrayed a gentle, quiet, and soft-spoken subject in one of his many poses. The difficulty here was whether to show the subject in a static pose, a mobile pose with a gestured wave, or a mobile pose with a simple gesture. The decision was to show the subject in a mobile pose with a simple gesture to signify the subject's continuous desire for world peace. The statue will portray Kofi Annan as an astute gentleman, a peace diplomat, and a global icon. Next was the size or purpose. It was important in achieving the impact of the statue to consider the scale of the statue. The 20-foot height was chosen to achieve the purpose of a towering statue at the entrance of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center and strategically placed close to the boundary fence and the road for all to see and appreciate Ghana's international peace diplomat on a giant scale. Having decided on the concept, size, and location, the next was the type of material to be used. This was due to the statue's proximity to the sea and the effects of the salt-line humidity on its durability. A number of materials were considered, and finally, stone was chosen. The statue will be produced in a gray ornamental stone marble known as Sierra Elvira. This type of marble stone is original, hard-wearing, durable, water-resistant, and has no weather coloration. The statue will measure 18 foot with a pedestal of 2 foot, totaling 20 foot tall. It has a weight of 6 foot, a thickness of 5 foot, and weighs 21 tons. Your Excellencies, I give you Ghana's global icon, Kofi Annan.
Well, that was an awesome video, and I can't wait to behold this magnificent edifice that will be built here. Surely, KIPTC will become a global and a local tourist destination, welcoming guests to view this towering monument. Ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged to have the wife of His Excellency Kofi Annan here with us today to mark this significant occasion. I would like to warmly welcome her to the podium for her to give us her remarks. Please, let's welcome her warmly.
Thank you very much. For me to come back to Ghana is always very meaningful. We've been here so often, and as you said from the beginning, momentous occasions become memories. And I think we have to focus on the gratitude for having spent so many years with him and for having been part of his vision and hopes for a better world. And I love that photograph where you see the optimism and his vision wanting to make life better and creating a more peaceful and fairer world for all. And again, I want to I and the family want to thank all who have given us their support and their thoughts embracing us in this difficult year that has passed. We have to continue to work in his spirit, and he is with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam. Ladies and gentlemen, may I add or share with you that this event is being watched live at the auditorium in Movenpick and also streaming live on KAIPTC's Facebook page at KAIPTCGH. As we prepare to welcome His Excellency the President of the Republic of Ghana, we will take a very short musical interlude. On cue. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to hear from His Excellency the President of the Republic. So with a raucous round of applause, let's welcome him to the podium. Thank you very much.
Madam, thank you very much. Let me extend on existing protocols and say merely that I'm really very privileged to have the honor of cutting the sword today to start the construction of this monument in honor of one of the most illustrious of our compatriots. There's not too much that can be said about the life of Kofi Annan that has not been said. But for me, what I see and what I remember is a man of principle, a man who valued important concepts in life and who lived his life according to those values. There are very few of us who can claim that, but he did it. And that is the reason why a grateful posterity has found it necessary to honor him. It's a lesson for all of us that if you live and act in a commendable way, your peers will recognize and acknowledge your efforts. I'm very, very happy that I have the opportunity today to be able to make this small contribution to the perpetuation of his memory. I'm hoping that the monument, when it is completed, will enable his widow to be able to continue to commune with him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. We've gotten to the apex of our gathering today, and Your Excellency, may I humbly invite you once again, together with Mrs. Nani Annan, to cast the sword for the monument, please. And supported by the former presidents also. Thank you. After the sword cutting, we would also dedicate the grounds and have the closing prayer simultaneously.
Humbly act upstanding, please. Shall we rise? I pray. I would like us to observe silence in honor of Ghana's son. May the soul of all who stood for the cause of the peace of the world, those who lost their lives during such, rest in perfect peace. Amen. Father, we commit this ground into your hands and ask that your presence will indwell here. We pray that as we go through the construction, your protection and grace will be upon those who will do all the work. We also pray that this will not just be a monument, but it will also be a symbol that the whole world needs peace, and that all of us must strive to make peace with one another. May it also serve as an encouragement to those of us who are coming up, that we need to do our best for the cause of this world. Therefore, we dedicate this ground in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
We continue to pray in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Almighty Allah, we thank you for gracing this occasion this morning, and we pray that as we depart from here, you send us all to our various destinations in peace, and may your blessing be upon us forevermore, and may you bless our leadership and bless Mother Ghana. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayri al-maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen.
Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to a close for this sword-cutting ceremony. Thank you all very much. Excellency, the President will first, then follow. His Excellency the President is leaving. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. This will be followed by the former presidents and then by KIPTC's goodwill ambassadors and other distinguished guests here. We will now all return to Movenpick Hotel to continue with the rest of the program for the day. Thank you all very much for coming.
This is JoyNews. You're watching our coverage of the CAPS Forum, the Kofi Annan Peace and Security Forum, which is underway at the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel. We'll take you there in a bit, but earlier we were at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center, where there was a sword-cutting ceremony for a monument in honor of Kofi Annan, the late Kofi Annan, the former UN Secretary General. As you remember, he was a man of peace. He's been described around the world as a catalyst for lasting peace across the globe. He's mediated in so many conflicts around the world, and that monument is in honor of the man who worked for peace. Very soon, we'll go back to the Movenpick Ambassador Hotel for the continuation of the forum, where we expect Professor Henrietta Mensah-Bonsu to address a forum on peace operations and violent extremism, given as regional perspectives. Why is this important? As we indicated, events in Nigeria to do with Boko Haram, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, we have seen terror groups rise. How do we deal with this before it further escalates? We'll be joining in that conversation when it begins at the Movenpick Hotel.